What's up, everybody? 40 the Broadway Saiyan here, and welcome back again to my YouTube channel, bringing you guys another video on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. For this video, we're going to be taking a look at the next upcoming character event, which is going to be featuring the debut of Edward from Final Fantasy IV. But first, if you guys enjoy the content that you see on this channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and also turn on that notification bell, so then that way you guys aren't missing out on new videos. And if you guys find the content on this channel very useful, be sure to smash that like button and share this video to your friends and family that may enjoy Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. So guys, Edward is going to be coming into Global Opera Omnia. He's going to be a very powerful support character that can control enemies, and we are going to get into that when we do talk about his entire kit alongside his EX weapon as well as his LD weapon, because it will be featured on the banner for this particular event. Something new that's also going to be in this event is PALOM from Final Fantasy IV is going to be getting an EX realization as well as a rework, so we are going to be talking about that as well. I will be covering the banner as well, and remember, this banner also features Ardyn's burst weapon, and this is going to be the last chance you guys have to get Ardyn's burst weapon. So if you failed to get it on the previous banners that it was featured on, this will be the last time to get it. So we're going to be touching up on that. And then I'm also going to be talking about the Chaos difficulty boss fight as well as the Chaos challenge against an enemy called the Rug Raptor. Now, unfortunately, upon the making of this video, JP DFFOO hasn't released the Edward Lost Chapters, so I won't have footage to show you for the boss fight, but we're still going to be covering it based on the information that we have from Dissidia DB. And then last but not least, we are going to be talking the Let's Play. So I'm going to show you guys, pretty much how Edward works, as well as PALOM, since he is going to be getting some new upgrades. Now, first of all, thank you to Dissidia DB and Rem for all of the information found on this video comes from that amazing website. Also, thank you to MacNull and the Dissidia Info, another fantastic resource for Opera Omnia, as well as to the Opera Omnia tracker, which allows us to track our progress in Opera Omnia, as well as to the Tonberry Troop for the lovely and beautiful infographics that they create to summarize what these characters do. And last but not least, the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles podcast, giving us a weekly podcast on Opera Omnia. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the Edward event coming live soon to Global Opera Omnia. みんなのために僕に任せてよかった倒せた The infamous Spoony Bard from Final Fantasy IV enters the world of Opera Omnia as a powerful support character specializing in controlling enemies with his abilities. Edward possesses 3 unique buffs and 2 unique debuffs. Let's start off by taking a look at his unique buffs. Hero's Rhyme has a 10-turn duration that increases the party's attack, increases the party's Brave Overflow, and provides a party-wide Brave regen. Hero's Rhyme changes into Hero's Rhyme 2, while Awaken Courage is active, providing a stronger effect to your party. Hero's Rhyme will decrease in turn duration every time Edward takes damage. Awaken Courage has a 6-turn duration that increases Edward's max Brave and attack. Lastly, Budding Courage has a 6-turn duration that increases his own max Brave attack and evasion rate and provides him with a self-HP regen. Edward's unique debuff Spoony Noise has a 6-turn duration and is stackable up to 3 stacks. At 1 stack, it lowers initial Brave, 2 stacks, it lowers max Brave and initial Brave. Finally, at 3 stacks, it lowers max Brave, initial Brave, and attack, and prevents Brave gain. His last unique debuff is Sleep, which has a 5-turn duration that lowers defense, prevents action from being taken, and delays by 1 turn upon expiration. Sleep's duration will go down by 1 turn whenever the target takes damage, except during a summon or burst mode. The turn duration goes down by 1 after the burst mode finishes. Edward's C65 ability is called Brave Heal All Buff Long, which has 3 total uses, healing the party's Brave based on max Brave and extends the duration of existing self-buffs by 2 turns. Edward's most noteworthy passives are his C50 passive, Prince of Damcian, increasing his own initial and max Brave while Hero's Rhyme is active, his C54 passive, which increases the party's initial and max Brave while buffed, his C58 passive, which increases his own attack and speed while buffed, and finally, his C68 passive, which permanently raises the party's initial Brave and attack. While Edward is buffed, he will have access to his Brave Attack++, which heals the party's Brave based on max Brave and delivers a 3-hit, non-elemental magic, single-target Brave attack, and access to his HP Attack++, which is a 3-hit, non-elemental magic, single-target Brave plus single-target HP attack with a 120% Brave overflow, healing the party's Brave based on the HP damage dealt. Edward's skill 1 is called Bard Song, which has a total of 8 uses. Bard Song heals the party's Brave based on max Brave, and then delivers a 4-hit, non-elemental magic, AoE Brave plus AoE HP attack with an increased Brave potency, 150% Brave overflow, split HP damage, grants Hero's Rhyme for 10 turns, and inflicts defense down to all enemies for 6 turns. His skill 2 is called Hide, which has 9 total uses. Hide heals the party's Brave based on max Brave, grants Budding Courage for 6 turns, dispels Awakened Courage, and changes into the skill Return while Budding Courage is active. Hide has no action delay and does not increase the turn count except during Friend or Summon. Return is a 5-hit, non-elemental magic, single target Brave plus single target HP attack with a 180% Brave overflow, grants Awakened Courage for 6 turns, dispels Budding Courage, heals the party's Brave based on the HP damage dealt, and reverts back to the skill Hide. Using Return does not consume any skill uses. Edward's EX weapon at full limit break and prior to its realization equips him with his EX ability Mystic Waltz, which has a slightly fast recast speed. Mystic Waltz is a 6-hit, non-elemental magic, AoE Brave plus AoE HP attack with an increased Brave damage against a single target, deals 100% AoE HP damage, and inflicts 1 stack of Spoony Noise to all enemies for 6 turns. Upon realizing his EX weapon, Edward gains the following upgrades. 0 out of 3 improves Mystic Waltz, allowing it to extend the duration of all debuffs inflicted by Edward by 1 turn, increased Brave potency, and 120% Brave overflow. It also grants Edward access to Brave Attack++ and HP Attack++ while he is buffed. 1 out of 3 permanently increases his own max Brave and attack. 2 out of 3 allows Edward to start the quest with Awakened Courage for 6 turns and Hero's Rhyme 2 for 10 turns. On his first turn, he will not consume any skill uses for his Skill 1, Skill 2, and C65 ability. Lastly, at the start of each wave, he will automatically inflict 1 stack of Spoony Noise for 1 turn. Finally, 3 out of 3 further improves Mystic Waltz, increasing its Brave hits to 8, increased Brave potency, and increased Brave overflow. The D-type sphere unlocked from his EX weapon is called Buff Success Base Boost All Short, which increases the party's initial Brave and max Brave by 5% for 3 turns after granting a buff. Lastly, Edward's LD weapon at full limit break permanently increases his own attack and grants him access to his LD ability Lullaby, which has a total of 3 uses. Lullaby extends the duration of all debuffs inflicted by Edward by 1 turn, reduces all enemy Brave to 0 unless already broken, heals the party's Brave based on max Brave, and inflicts sleep on all enemies for 5 turns. Recommended artifact passes for Edward are 3 copies of Max Brave plus 330 and 3 copies of Prince of Damsian up 2-star. You can consider using Attack plus 108 if you want him to deal more damage with his offensive abilities. The Loudmouth Mage Palom from Final Fantasy IV receives a rework and EX realization alongside Edward's event. His skill 1 Bluff, along with its plus and plus plus variants, increases the self-brave heal based on attack, improves the attack up effect of Dark Arts, extends the duration of Dark Arts, and now delivers a 6-hit Ice Magic single target Brave plus single target HP attack with a 180% Brave overflow. His Brave Attack Plus increases its Brave hits to 6 along with a Brave potency increase. His skill 2 Mycidian Ice Crystal, along with its plus and plus plus variants, improve the max Brave up and Brave overflow up effect of Dark Wisdom, extends the duration of Dark Wisdom, triggers an HP attack after usage, and extends the duration of Dual Cast. The base, plus, 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 and great version of this skill receive an increased Brave hits to 8, increased Brave potency, 150% Brave overflow, and deals HP splash damage with the amount increasing depending on the variant of the skill used. Lastly, his Dual Cast command from his HP command receives an increased Brave hits to 6, increased Brave potency, 120% Brave overflow, and deals 50% HP splash damage. Palom's returning EX weapon receives an EX realization granting him the following upgrades. 0 out of 3 improves his Stardust's EX ability with increased Brave potency, 120% Brave overflow, and increased recast speed to fast. 1 out of 3 permanently raises his own max Brave and attack. 2 out of 3 allows Palom to start the quest with both Dark Arts and Dark Wisdom for 8 turns, grants access to Brave Attack Plus and Dual Cast for 8 turns, and fills his EX gauge to max. Finally, 3 out of 3 further upgrades Stardust, now dealing a 4-hit Ice Magic AoE Brave plus AoE HP attack, followed by a 7-hit Ice Magic AoE Brave plus AoE HP attack with a Brave potency increase, increased Brave overflow, and self-Brave heals by 50% of the HP damage dealt after the first HP attack. The A-type sphere unlocked from this EX weapon is called Weak Boost Up Long, which increases own max brave by 10% for 6 turns when hitting a target's weakness. Recommended artifact passes for PALOM post his rework and EX realization are 3 copies of Attack plus 108 and 3 copies of Max Brave plus 330. Alright guys, so now that we've gone ahead and covered what Edward brings to the table with his entire kit, as well as what PALOM does with his rework and realization, what are my overall thoughts on these 2 particular characters? We're going to start things off with PALOM because he is a more familiar character since he's been out before, so I really do like the upgrades that this character gets. He hits even harder, he has more brave hits, he has, higher overflows, and let's not forget that dual cast command coming from his HP, skill is actually quite viable. I mean, it hits pretty hard, it has 50% splash damage, and it also allows PALOM to have some crazy amount of longevity. And then take a look at how long his buffs last. They last a pretty long time, so you don't necessarily really have to be spamming skills with PALOM unless you absolutely need to refresh the buffs that he has. And then when you actually do use his skills, remember, every time he uses it, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger because it changes into a different variant. And then something that I really do like about what PALOM gets is also his EX realization further increases the recast speed of his EX ability. So now that it's at a fast recast speed, you're going to find yourself casting that EX ability quite often, and you don't necessarily have to use his skills. You can just spam that dual cast HP command and you'll be getting there, within a few turns. And as you could see at full realization, his EX ability hits twice and it hits really, really hard. So PALOM, I think, is actually a pretty solid damage dealer. While he doesn't have access to an LD, and while he may be, overshadowed by some of the other characters that we get that are, primarily damage dealers, I think PALOM is a solid budget unit, for those of you that are, looking to build up like another character that could deal, a particular, elemental damage as well as having magic. So PALOM is going to be fitting that role for you. So if you happen to pull his weapon on the banner for this Edward event, he's actually a pretty solid unit. I wouldn't underestimate him, especially if you need somebody that wields the ice element to inflict like, or to deal with our particular ice weakness that a boss may have. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about Edward. So Edward in a nutshell is a support character that can really debilitate enemies. That LD ability is super powerful when you actually inflict it on enemies. It lasts for 5 turns, and then even if you deal damage and you decrease that turn duration, when it expires, it just automatically delays the target. So it can either expire from you dealing damage, or it can just expire normally and it's still going to delay them, and it also prevents action provided that the buff is active. And then something really cool that I like about Edward is his survivability is actually insane, because when you use his hide command, it's a very, very rare chance or almost 0 chance that he's going to get hit, because he has that evasion rate up, and he also has the HP regen that he provides to himself. So he could safely sit, in the back while also dealing damage at the same time, which, gives him longevity, it gives him crazy survivability. And then when you need him to come out, he'll just, use that skill 2, and then afterwards he's going to get a further attack and max brave increase to himself, which allows him to deal more damage. And then to top it off, his supportive auras are actually quite good for the party. He increases attack for the party, he increases initial brave, max brave, as well as brave overflow. So the character has so much to offer, and honestly, I highly recommend you guys considering, to invest in Edward, because the thing about this character is there's a lot of different combat tricks that you could do, because he could debilitate enemies so hard with the debuffs that he applies with his EX and LD, and also the support that he provides to your party. So excellent character overall. Which brings me to my next topic, the banner. So the banner is going to be featuring Edward's gear. It's also going to have Arden's burst weapon, and it's also going to have PALOM as well as Hope. Now, again, PALOM is a great, I would say, budget character because he only goes all the way up into an EX. So if you happen to pull his gear, he's a solid slot in for a character that you might need for, magic damage that also wields the ice element. Hope himself is actually still pretty solid. While we do have better support characters, he's still really good at mitigating damage. He could heal you, he could batter your party. So Hope is another pretty excellent pickup if you missed out on his EX weapon the first time that it came out. And then Edward, what's there to say? The character is amazing. amazing. You know, he could protect himself from getting hit. He can also provide support to your party with some powerful auras, and he can also debilitate enemies with his really powerful debuff. So overall, this is an excellent banner with a lot of, you know, great value. And if you missed out on Arden's burst weapon on the previous banners, this is definitely a great banner to try to get it now, because, you know, the value that this banner brings is very, very solid and very, very good. So again, take a look at your resources, because I know that, you know, some of us are still trying to recover our resources from when Noctis first came out, or depending on how much we've already invested in Arden or, you know, the previous Renoa banners and stuff like that. So just take a look at your resources, take a look at your roster. If Edward is going to be providing you with some value, if you need that, you know, support character that also provides really powerful debuffs, or if you want a character like Palom who deals, you know, a lot of magic damage and also has the ice element attached to his abilities, then maybe this is the banner for you. So anyways, guys, now we're going to go ahead and cover that Chaos difficulty boss fight. Again, I don't have footage for you guys because upon the making of the video, JP still has not released the lost chapters for Edward, so no footage there, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. But we're going to be fighting against a pair of the Elveret type enemies called the Rug Raptor. Now, it is a two-way fight. Wave 1 is going to be featuring the Ochu enemy. It's going to be the standard version of the Ochu boss. If you guys are pretty familiar with it, it summons adds, you know, can inflict different debuffs. You know, as long as you're prepared for it, it's really not going to be too much of a difficult fight, especially if you bring Edward, because he could just shut things down, you know, with his different debuffs. But the main boss fight is going to be featuring the Rug Raptor. Now, from what I remember, they don't have any elemental weaknesses or resistances, so that's a good thing. So you have a little bit more flexibility as far as, you know, different party compositions for the normal Chaos. And the things to watch out for this particular boss fight is they're going to use a Brave attack that gives them HP damage up, and then right after that they're going to be dealing 2 consecutive attacks next turn. So there's a very high chance, if you let this slide through, that somebody might die. So characters that can turn manipulate or delay are going to be very powerful for this particular event. Edward obviously is going to be really good because he has the sleep debuff with his LD, which also automatically delays upon expiration. If you have Arden build up, I mean, Arden right now is just a crazy DPS unit that can also manipulate turns. He also does not die as long as you have that LD buff for him active, so he's going to be a really good choice for that. Characters that can mitigate damage, such as Hope, or even characters such as like Bosch or Porum, or even Kimari, who's also going to be synergy for this, because he will be the current Lost Chapters character for this particular event, is going to be very good for this particular event. So you have a lot of choices, a lot of flexibility, as long as you could keep their turns at bay, kind of prevent them from attacking or taking a turn, so then that way they're not really taking advantage of having to apply that powerful buff that allows them to, you know, take two consecutive attacks next turn. Now, something they do also do is they do have access to an ability that can delay your party if they break you, so that's also something you want to watch out for. But pretty much it's a pretty straightforward fight as long as you're prepared for it. Now, for the Chaos Challenge, highly recommended that you have Edward. If you guys are going to invest in Edward, he's probably the best pick for this, because he can control them, he can shut them down. And then if you have Arden, I mean, like I just said, Arden is a crazy character when it comes to dealing damage, when it comes to surviving, and also turn manipulation. And then some of the other characters that are also synergy, which is Palom, excuse me. Palom and Hope are also great picks for this, and also Kimari, because Hope and Kimari can mitigate HP damage. Hope can also further mitigate by providing, you know, the buffs that he has from his skill 1 and skill 2. And then afterwards we have Palom. If you need somebody just to deal out more damage, or let's say you don't have access to Arden, for example, you can also use Palom if you're looking for just a raw damage dealer to be able to dish out damage for the Chaos Challenge. Alright guys, well that covers those topics for now, so we're going to go ahead and move forward to the Let's Play for both Edward and Palom. So let's go ahead and move forward to that. Alrighty guys, so here we are with our Let's Play for both Palom and Edward. So hopefully this will help you guys kind of understand how these characters work, especially Edward, since he is the newer character. So Edward, assuming you have his gear all fully maxed out, you have his EX weapon fully realized, fully purpled, and also his LD weapon, max limit broken, and all that good stuff, he's going to start off with his Awakened Courage for 6 turns, and he's also going to start off with Hero's Rhyme 2 for 10 turns, which gives him access to Brave Attack++, HP Attack++, and remember, he also starts off with a free skill usage on his very first turn. So when Edward starts off, generally what I like to do is actually go into his skill 2. Now the reason why I do this is 1, it's free, and 2, it puts him in that hide stance. So now he has access to his other buff that replaces Awakened Courage, and what that does is it gives him that high evasion rate, it gives him that HP regen, and pretty much he's literally impossible to hit. So that's something that I like to do with Edward, so then that way he's protecting himself, and at the same time he's also supporting your allies. So you can always use his skill 2, you know, if you want him to like pop out of the hide stance and you know, deal damage, which he does deal a pretty significant amount of single target damage, but generally I like to keep him here because it gives me a way for him to protect himself. So then what I usually do here is I can either go into his HP attack plus, or I can go into his skill 1. Skill 1 is more desired because he does apply that what is it? I believe it's like a defense down. It's a defense down debuff for 6 turns. So that's always nice to have. Now PALOM, he starts off with his EX ability right off the bat. You have it available as long as, you know, have his EX weapon full realized 2 out of 3. So he has that as an option. So pretty much with PALOM, since you have that, I would just go immediately into that. And remember, he starts off with both his Dark Arts and his Dark Wisdom for 8 turns. And then he has immediate access to Dual Cast and Brave Attack plus, which, you know, further enhances his longevity. All right, so now we're back to Edward. So we have some options here. So I can either go into HP Attack plus if I want to save abilities, or I could go into Sleep, which is his LD ability. But for the purposes of this video, let's actually use that LD ability. So we're going to use that LD ability, and it's going to put that Sleep debuff for 5 turns. And as you could see, because the Sleep debuff is active on this Cactus Gigantor, it could not take an action. But remember, anytime a target afflicted with Sleep takes damage, it will decrease that turn duration for Sleep. And then when it expires, it will just automatically delay them. And that expiration effect, it'll trigger either if it's done by damage, or if the debuff, I mean, just expires naturally. So let's actually see that in action. We're gonna go ahead and use Dual Cast with PALOM. So PALOM is between the 2 characters is definitely the more straightforward one. You generally only want to go with his skills if you know that his buffs are about to run out. But his buffs last for so long, so that's why the character, you know, has some pretty insane longevity as a damage dealer. Okay, so with Edward, we now have access to his EX ability. Remember, his EX charges quite quickly. You know, it doesn't take very many skill usage to get that to charge up. And what this does is it delivers, you know, a powerful AoE magic attack, and then it also inflicts 1 stack of his Spoony Noise debuff. I like to call it Spoony Noise. I know it's also called Debilitating Sound from the global translation, but Spoony Noise sounds cooler. Final Fantasy IV reference. But what it does is it puts 1 stack, and every time the stack increases, that debuff has added effects. So 1 stack, it's at, you know, initial Brave Down. You know, 2 stacks, I believe it's initial Brave Down and max Brave Down, and then 3 stacks is definitely where you want it, because not only does it decrease the enemy's stats, but it also prevents them from having Brave gain. So it has that freeze, you know, effect, kind of like from Setzer's debuff, but it's on a frame debuff, which makes it very, very powerful. So we're actually going to go ahead and do that here. We're going to use his EX ability. So we're going to have 2 stacks, so we don't have it quite at 3. But now we further reduced, you know, the enemy's statistics. And then with PALOM, again, very, very good longevity. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and use Dual Cast. There's really no reason to use his skill 1 or skill 2 unless his buffs are running out. All right, so now with Edward, just for the purposes of the video, let's go ahead and use his skill 2. So he'll come out of hiding. He's going to get Awakened Courage again. And there we go. And as you could see, because we were dealing damage to the Gigantor, the debuff itself, you know, was reducing in turn duration. And then afterwards, since it expired naturally, it got the 1 turn delay. And that also happens again if you happen to have the buff expire because you're dealing damage to it. So that's pretty much in a nutshell how Edward works. And let's just go ahead and finish this fight with PALOM. As you could see, it didn't take very long to get PALOM's EX ability up. So I feel like he's going to be a very underestimated character just because, you know, he is just primarily a damage dealer, and he only has access up until an EX Plus weapon, but he's actually a very solid unit if you're looking for a character that can deal a lot of, powerful magic damage with the ice element. And then Edward is just crazy because there's a lot of different combat tricks you could do with him, especially with that sleep debuff. He has ways of protecting himself with that hide, and then afterwards further improving his offense if he's not hiding. So overall, very, very good characters, and hopefully this portion of the video helps you guys understand, how to play them and things like that. Alright guys, thank you again for watching. Stay tuned for the next video, and mahal guys.